Hey there, friends. Pastor Jason here. Glad you can join me for daily devotionals. Today we're just going to do one chapter, Genesis 30. We're going to continue talking about the sons of Jacob, and then we're going to talk about how Jacob outsmarts Laban and his raising of goats. If that part confuses you, don't worry. I'm going to explain it when we get to the end, and we'll also quickly explain the importance of Jacob's children. Here we go. Chapter 30, verse 1. Keep out an eye out for what do you learn about the Lord? What do you learn about man? Is there sin to avoid? A commandment to follow? How are you coming away changed? Keep those questions in mind today as you meditate on Genesis 30. Again, verse 1. Here we go. When Rachel saw that she was not bearing Jacob any children, she envied her sister. Now don't forget, last chapter, yesterday, we read that Leah had born Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah already to Jacob. Okay? So Rachel saw that she wasn't bearing Jacob any children. She envied her sister. Give me sons or I will die, she said to Jacob. Jacob became angry with Rachel and said, Am I in God's place who has withheld children from you? Then she said, Here is my slave Bilhah. Go sleep with her, and she'll bear children for me so that through her I too can build a family. So Rachel gave her slave Bilhah to Jacob as a wife, and he slept with her. Bilhah conceived and bore Jacob a son. Rachel said, God has vindicated me. Yes, he has heard me and given me a son. And she named him Dan. Rachel's slave Bilhah conceived again and bore Jacob a second son. Rachel said, In my wrestlings with God, I have wrestled with my sister and won. And she named him Naphtali. When Leah saw that she had stopped having children, she took her slave Zilpah and gave her to Jacob as a wife. Leah's slave Zilpah bore Jacob a son. Then Leah said, What good fortune! And she named him Gad. When Leah's slave Zilpah bore Jacob a second son, Leah said, I am happy that the women call me happy. So she named him Asher. Reuben went out during the wheat harvest and found some mandrakes in the field. Remember, that's Jacob's firstborn. When he brought them to his mother Leah, Rachel asked, Please give me some of your son's mandrakes. But Leah replied to her, Isn't it enough that you've taken my husband? Now you also want to take my son's mandrakes? Well, Rachel said, You can sleep with him tonight in exchange for your son's mandrakes. When Jacob came in from the field that evening, Leah went out to meet him and said, You must come with me, for I have hired you with my son's mandrakes. So Jacob slept with her that night. God listened to Leah, and she conceived and bore Jacob a fifth son. Leah said, God has rewarded me for giving my slave to my husband, and she named him Issachar. Then Leah conceived again and bore Jacob a sixth son. God has given me a good gift, Leah said. This time my husband will honor me because I have borne 6 sons for him. And she named him Zebulun. Later, Leah bore a daughter and named her Dinah. Then God remembered Rachel. He listened to her and opened her womb. She conceived and bore a son and said, God has taken away my shame. She named him Joseph. May the Lord add another son to me. And as we will see in a few chapters, Rachel will bear Jacob another son, and they'll name him Benjamin. Verse 25, After Rachel gave birth to Joseph, Jacob said to Laban, Send me on my way so that I can return to my homeland. Give me my wives and my children that I have worked for, and let me go. You know how hard I have worked for you. But Laban said to him, If I have found favor in your sight, stay. I have learned by divination that the Lord has blessed me because of you. Then Laban said, Name your wages, I'll pay them. So Jacob said to him, You know what I've done for you and your herds, for you had very little before I came, but now your wealth has increased. The Lord has blessed you because of me, And now, when will I also do something for my own family?" Laban asked, "What should I give you?" And Jacob said, "You don't need to give me anything. If you do this one thing for me, I will continue to shepherd and keep your flock. Let me go through all your sheep today, and I'll remove every sheep that is speckled or spotted." It's kind of the rarer kind. "Every dark-colored sheep among the lambs, and the spotted and speckled among the female goats." Again, kind of rare. "Such will be my wages. In the future, when you come to check on my wages, my honesty will testify for me. If any female goats that are not speckled or spotted, or any lambs that are not black, they will be considered stolen." So in other words, Laban will have all of the monocolored sheep and goats and stuff, okay? "Good," said Laban. "Let it be as you have said." That day Laban removed the streaked and spotted male goats and all the speckled and spotted female goats, every one that had any white on it, and every dark-colored one among the lambs, and he placed his sons in charge of them. He put a 3-day journey between himself and Jacob. Jacob, meanwhile, was shepherding the rest of Laban's flock. Jacob then took branches of fresh poplar, almond, and plane wood, and peeled the bark, exposing white stripes on the branches. He set the peeled branches in the troughs in front of the sheep, in the water channels where the sheep came to drink, and the sheep bred when they came to drink. The flocks bred in front of the branches and bore streaked, speckled, and spotted young. Jacob separated the lambs and made the flocks face the streaked and the completely dark sheep in Laban's flock. Then he set his own stock apart and did not put them with Laban's sheep. Whenever the stronger of the flock were breeding, Jacob placed the branches in the troughs in full view of the flocks, and they would breed in front of those branches. As for the weaklings of the flocks, he did not put out the branches. So it turned out that the weak sheep belonged to Laban, and the stronger ones to Jacob. And the man became very rich. He had many flocks, male and female slaves, and camels and donkeys. Wow. So, good old Jacob. Okay. Let's talk about the children first. Okay. I got my list here and the order in which they were born. And we're going to find out they're going to turn into the 12 tribes of Israel. But I wanted them, so you can see them. I'm going to put the sons of Leah over here, and I'm going to put the sons of Rachel over there. Okay. First kid that was born was Leah's Reuben, and then Simon, and then Levi, and then Judah. And then Rachel gives her slave, again, different culture, different time, to Jacob as a wife so that she could have a family. And so Bilhah gives birth to Dan and Naphtali. And then Leah sees that, and so she gives her slave Zilpah to Jacob as a wife to continue the lineage. And you get Gad, who's the 7th son, Asher the 8th. And then Leah gives birth again, and she gives birth to Issachar and Zebulun. And then she also gives birth to Dinah, the one named daughter. And then Rachel gives birth to Joseph, and like I mentioned in a few chapters, she'll give birth to another son named Benjamin. Those are the 12 tribes of Israel when they split up the land, when they're eventually going to get, enslaved in Egypt for several generations, and then Moses will come and lead them out, and they'll see the promised land. They won't be able to enter into that land. But once they get in there after 40 years of wandering around, and they take the land over and they split the land up into 12 tribes, it's from this lineage that we're talking about right now. Okay? Now, the sheep and goat thing, confusing, right? What's going on there? So Jacob's looking to have a huge flock. He wants to be a rich man. He wants to go back to his homeland. with something to support this huge family of his. And his uncle Laban trying to take advantage of him again. This time, Jacob kind of flips the script on Laban this time, right? He uses his understanding about sheep and says, give me the rarer kind of sheep, right? Give me the ones that, like if two, let's just say two white goats or two black goats, they have baby goat, they're gonna be most likely black, right? There might be some recessive gene in there that'll give you a speckled goat, but mostly you're gonna get single colored goats. Same goes for speckled goats. You put two speckled goats together, you're most likely going to get speckled goats. You might get that recessive gene every once in a while and get yourself a solid animal, but probably not. Those chances are kind of small. So when you separate them out, as Laban thinks, oh, I'm going to get all sorts of goats because all my goats are mostly solid colors, and I'm giving him just a few speckled goats. Well, as those single color animals occasionally have a speckled goat, he gets them. And then as those speckled goats have children, he gets them. And then the Lord uses that wood thing as a way to encourage that. But then what also does Jacob do? He only does it when he sees the stronger animals breeding. If the weaker animals are breeding, he kind of leaves it off. So that way Laban, so when the single-colored goats, the weak single-colored goats have animals, when they have babies, they're probably going to have a weaker offspring as well. And when the strong single-colored animals come and breed, he puts that wood out in hopes that they will have a speckled-colored animal. And when they do, occasionally, he gets strong speckled-colored goats. And so eventually, his animals become very strong, very numerous, where Laban's flock is the weaker of the two flocks and less numerous. Wow, Jacob using his mind. And that's the Lord wants us to use our minds. He wants us to use our minds creatively in the truth and use us for his service. I love we're seeing the promise come to fruition that we read several chapters back, that when Jacob escaped to Laban's, several decades now, right? At least 14 years, maybe more. He's just about prepared to come back home to his homeland. Remember, he escaped from Esau, but he's going to come back with a huge family, and he's going to, what does it say in the last verse there, 43? He became very rich, had many flocks, male and female slaves, and camels and donkeys. He's become a big deal. He leaves worried that he's going to get killed by his own brother, and he's coming back in the fruition of the promise of the Lord. And even more so, we know that the future, these are the 12 sons of Israel, right? These are the 12 tribes of Israel. Man, I hope this chapter was a blessing to you. Go on out, be a blessing to those around you, and I'll see you tomorrow as we continue in Genesis.